So I'm old enough to remember when a president was impeached for lying during the legal proceedings that ensued from a sexual harassment lawsuit brought about by Paula Jones. Bill Clinton lied about the nature of his relationship with Monica Lewinsky, and the rest is history. Could that pattern repeat itself if Donald Trump is forced to offer a deposition in this lawsuit or answer questions under oath from Robert Mueller? Our panel is here, joining Nick and me, the Rev. Al Sharpton, host of Politics Nation here on MSNBC and president of the National Action Network, Evan McMullin, former CIA operative who ran for president in 2016 as an independent candidate and never would have had us talking about porn, and Jason Johnson, politics editor for The Root, and an MSNBC contributor. So I have to say what I said in the break. I said, you know, we said, is this too, you know, I mean, do we really want to embarrass the Rev and talk about porn? And I said, he's the only one that knows Donald Trump. I mean, like, so let's start with you. I mean, this is not in this instance with Stormy Daniels, this is not a sexual harassment or sexual misconduct story. If you accept her account and In Touch, they had a seemingly pleasant encounter. They met at a celebrity golf tournament. She had some interesting color about his fear of sharks. I don't know if that's something you knew about, but this is something different. This is about hush money paid to cover up an affair that took place after he was married to Melania Trump.
I think the issue here is exactly that, whether or not he was paying cover-up money and whether or not Michael Cohen, his lawyer, did a contribution in kind to the campaign that he covered up, and that would violate campaign finance laws. Two problems with that. If, in fact, he did, that is punishable and clearly could threaten his license. If there was an arbitration, he has to explain, how do you have an arbitration and not have told your client when Donald Trump claims he knew nothing about any money? So he couldn't have had an arbitration for a client and not tell the client. That would be unethical and could get him disbarred. Or he has to say Donald Trump is lying. He had to know about it. So it's going to be very interesting if Mueller has the right to interview either Cohen or Trump, right? Because the arbitration, which is why I think the reports about Trump getting so angry with Huckabee Sanders is so, the arbitration, I think, is just as sticky as the source of the money. And why? Because how do you get around an arbitration? Is a lawyer really going to say, I went to arbitration for somebody and never told them? How do you say that? Well, and the lawyer, you know, another sort of nest of angry bees seems to be questions around where the money came from, because he either, you know, maybe he can get Michael Cohen out of legal trouble by admitting the money came from him, but then he's got to go upstairs and explain that to Melania. So you know, this just seems like a whole lot of inconvenient choices.
Yes, and if this continues on and we learn more about their affair, there may be some embarrassing facts and documents and photographs potentially that could come out as a part of discovery. I mean, well, let's. I mean, so first of all, the sexual part of their relationship is alleged. She alleges it was sexual. We know they knew each other. But photographs. Funny you should mention photographs, because her lawyer specifically mentioned on the Today Show with Savannah Guthrie photographs, texts, and other indisputable evidence that made me think of a little blue dress in history. Absolutely. There are some parallels there. So that can be incredibly embarrassing to a president, even, I think, to a president like Donald Trump. I mean, I don't think anyone's surprised that he had an affair with a pornographic actor. That's not a surprise, but boy, if there are photos and these kinds of things, that could be very embarrassing. The other thing is, who else has these photos? Could they be obtained by other people and used against the president? So there are these sticky issues. Let me follow up with you. I mean, we talk week after week after week about what kinds of things the Russians could have on him if that's what they're holding over him to gain such favorable treatment in our foreign policy arena. Is this the kind of thing that the Russians like to have? Yes, it is. It's the kind of thing they work to obtain, even setting up situations by which they can, in which they can collect this kind of derogatory information on someone. Not that they played a role in this, but the point is certainly that if there's something in this affair that the president seeks to hide beyond the affair, which I don't think is enough to blackmail the president on, well, then that could leave him vulnerable, yes. I'm sorry. I'm old enough to remember. I'm old enough to
when we were all uncomfortable in class about talking about what happened with the blue dress. And now
it's in the Smithsonian.
Right, exactly. We're now at a point, like, I don't know what Stormy Daniels is going to donate to the Smithsonian one day. It should be fascinating. So this is the thing that gets me about this. There's the legal thing that Rev mentioned. There's the national security issue. I'm thinking just sort of the political thing. What bothers me about it, and it's a demonstration of what we've seen about this administration all along, it's not just that he had an affair. It's not just that he had an affair with a sex worker. She seems like a perfectly nice person. What she does is legal. If it actually happened, it's that it was only a couple months after his son was born. It just demonstrates, again, this disdain for women who are even a part of his life. I mean, your wife just gave birth to your son, and rather than being there, being supportive and being helpful, the first thing you're doing is running off to try and, possibly have an alleged relationship with an adult film star. And that's just another example of the way this president seems to operate with women, even within his personal life. That's the most disturbing thing to me, above and beyond the fact that he had a potentially $130,000 date.
Or dates. Known unknowns. I think it's a tired story, but we should never normalize it. The evangelical community gave Donald Trump, almost delivered him a victory in the Iowa caucuses, almost the very first contest that he ran in. He almost beat Ted Cruz in the Iowa caucuses. I mean, you could argue that evangelical Republicans are the reason he is the president of the United States of America. Do you think a sustained sex scandal like this could become, if Stormy Daniels' case goes forward and it continues to get the kind of attention that every other sex scandal, I mean, MSNBC is airing a doc on Gary Hart. Literally every other politician that has engaged in any sort of conduct, even in this category, has had their career ended. He's had none of that treatment, and some of it's on us. We ignore it because we're so used to it. And some of it is on his evangelical base that has made perfectly clear they don't care.
I think they made a strategic choice, as people often do in politics, that he is delivering for them on their culture war needs, on abortion, on judges, and they're fine with that. He's their champion. I will point out, though, the Clinton example, how did that end? He was impeached, and most of the country came to conclude the whole thing was a terrible waste of time and money and effort, and it was a bad thing to have gone after him on sex. It's not impossible to imagine that the country comes to a same conclusion on this in the end. Like, why are we going after this guy for an affair? We know he's sleazy. It's not the most important thing. It seems over-aggressive. I'm not saying that will happen, but history shows that it can happen.
And we know that they don't care about Russian intervention. Why would they care about this?
Yeah.
Is that,
Look,
is that your prediction?
There are so many things that supporters of the president have decided to rationalize or put aside. This seems like pretty far down at the bottom of the list to me.
But they do like Melania. I mean, let me just make the case for Melania Trump here. She has been stoic. She has been, you talk about no drama Obama. I don't know, I can't make it rhyme, but it's no drama Melania. She has gone on foreign trips. She has gone to disasters. There's no public displays of anything that I can detect that she's ever acted out on. So she has, just as an observer, she has certainly seemed to have stepped into a role that it's not clear she ever wanted. Does he, as a human being, owe her no sort of mercy from humiliation?
Well, sure, he would owe her, but you'd have to talk about a human being that thinks they owe anybody anything.
Right.
And I think that's the problem. And I think that I think you hit a core, as far as I'm concerned, the core when you raise the evangelicals. I don't expect, as I've said many times, any core beliefs in Donald Trump. The question is, what are the core beliefs in the evangelicals? And even if they're saying that we're doing this, as I agree with them, that for our bigger picture culture wars, which are based on their interpretation of morality, right to choose.
Yeah.
How do you then excuse what you call immorality for moral ends? It's a walking contradiction.
Go ahead, real quick.
Yeah, I got to mention, I think Nicolle is right also on this. If anything, if this begins to be an embarrassment to Melania, who most people see as sort of an innocent bystander,
Stoic,
if she has the Hillary Clinton moment where she's wearing sunglasses and people think there's something puffy that she may have been, if she ever looks like she's been hurt, I think even some evangelicals, because they like to tell themselves that for all of these outside things, he has still been a relatively good husband and all the rest of these people are degraded women who are trying to bring him down. that may cause him some trouble. It may not cause him trouble at the ballot box, but it could cause Republicans trouble if they're seen as defending yet another example of inappropriate behavior by people in this administration.
All right, when we come back, Donald Trump rolls the dice on Little Rocket Man.